So Vietnam's struggle for independence lasted throughout the French colonial period. And the last major movement within this longer struggle was what I call the modern revolutionary movement. Some scholars would call it the nationalist movement. This movement emerged in the 1920s, and as a whole, it aimed to liberate Vietnam from French colonialism through a violent overthrow of the French colonial government. And then after achieving independence, the revolutionaries wanted to establish an independent government that was based on the people. There was this basic agreement among the revolutionaries. But then beyond that, they disagreed on lots of other things. So they disagreed on who should lead the struggle for independence, and they disagreed on what sort of government to form after independence. And this disagreement took the form of two competing strands, or two competing political tendencies within the movement. The first was republicanism or Republican nationalism, and the second was communism. So the first strand was republicanism or Republican nationalism. Republican nationalists understood the struggle for independence to be primarily a political revolution. So after achieving independence, they wanted to form a Republican government. That's why they're often described as Republicans. And a Republican government is a government without a monarchy, so without a king or a queen. Specifically, they envisioned that this Republican government would be democratic. So they imagined a representative government based on the people, based on universal suffrage. They also favored civil liberties such as freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of assembly. Now these are general characteristics. They favored these things to different degrees over time, so it wasn't quite uniform. The other thing to remember about this group is that they were nationalists, and they were nationalists in the sense that they understood the people. So when they said that they wanted to form a government based on the people, they defined the people as all ethnic Vietnamese as a whole. So that's why we call them Republican nationalists. The third major characteristic we should remember is that they were largely anti-communist, and they opposed communism for two main reasons. Many of them rejected class warfare, so they rejected it on ideological grounds, and other groups rejected communism in the sense that they didn't want to live under communist rule. They didn't want to live under the rule of the Communist Party. The other main trend within the modern revolutionary movement was communism. Communists understood the struggle for independence to be a political, economic, and a social revolution. They imagined that the first phase of the revolution would focus on the political aspect. So after achieving independence, they wanted to establish what was called a people's democracy. That is a government that's based on an alliance between the Vietnamese working class and the Vietnamese peasantry. The Communist Party would lead the working class, and the working class in turn would lead the government. Other parties would be allowed to exist, but only if they obeyed the Communist Party. Then, the second phase of the revolution would focus on economic and social change, and specifically it would establish socialism, or what they meant by socialism. So during the second phase, the communists imagined that they would abolish private property, and they would also overthrow the Vietnamese upper class, especially business owners and landlords. Then all land and all factories, to the extent that factories actually existed in Vietnam, would be in the hands of the government. So it would be collectively owned by the government rather than by private individuals. So there were two key differences between republicanism and communism, or Republican nationalists and communists. The first one is that the communists thought not only in terms of ethnicity, but also in terms of class. So when they talked about establishing a people's democracy based on the people, they meant not all Vietnamese, all ethnic Vietnamese, but only the Vietnamese working class, or Vietnamese lower class rather. The other key difference is that the communists were more explicitly international in their outlook. So they understood the struggle for independence in Vietnam to be part of this larger international communist revolution that was supposed to liberate the working class throughout the world.